first thing I think I discovered was that and we've struggled today, you can't really describe life planning effectively. And I think there's a message there. This is something that you have to experience to know about. You can't explain it. My son is an avid film buff, and he spends hours explaining to me films that he's recently seen umpteen times. And he'll describe sketches, and I'm bored beyond comprehension, and he thinks this is really exciting and interesting. But the reality is that I have to see the flippant film to actually experience it. His explanation, good though it is not good enough. And I sort of think that life planning fits into that category. So when I came off the George Kinder 5-day course, I was in orbit and very enthused by the whole process. And mindful I would introduce life planning to all clients, this is what we do. And that's what is gradually happening. And so in front of clients I would explain, this is what we're going to do, but then was slightly surprised when you started to talk about a fee for this work involved, that there was a sort of a glazing over the eyes, because they couldn't quite see it or understand it, and couldn't quite understand why I wanted to take up 1,500 quid or something extra for this life planning. So quite quickly I've dissipated that, and I think life planning is a tool that you have in your toolbox. I use it on every client. I intend to use it on every client relationship, but we're not quite there yet. But I'm not going to describe it or try and describe it saying this is something really, really special, because I think I fail at the first offence. There may be others that succeed, but I've not succeeded yet. But what I do, and I might just give you an example of the first meeting of a prospective client. I've lifted this from Paul Armstrong of this Truth presentation, and I talk about financial planning and the 3 hats that a financial planner has: the life planner hat, the financial planner hat, and the financial advisor hat. And I explain that we will spend a lot of time talking about your personal objectives, what you want out of your life, what you want to be, because only if we're absolutely crystal clear about those can we then blend in the financial architecture in the background to achieve what you want. For as long as we're hazy about your personal objectives, then the finances won't necessarily work terribly well. And somehow or other I get a degree of success from clients because they can see that. And I do explain our next meeting, which we refer to as a discovery meeting, we will spend an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20, just talking about you and what you want from the rest of your life. And they sort of understand that, but I don't say, right, I'm going to use the George Kinder principles, and we've got these 3 special questions, and I'm going to do this form, that form. Yes, I do, but I don't explain it on that basis. One of the most useful conversations that I've had at work is, again, at that first meeting, you ask this individual, husband and wife, have you used a financial advisor in the past? And you generally get yes, but not always. Can you tell me about the experience? And then you get all the shortcomings of the transactional financial advisor. Sometimes you don't, but often you do. And then you can see what they've experienced in the past. And then when you get later on in the meeting to explain how you're going to support them in the ongoing, it all fits very nicely, and you can piggyback on some of the problems they've had in the past. It also highlights that when you start talking about your fee and how you get remunerated, that there's a degree of logic. They've been critical of the old world, so hey, they've got to now move into the new world and pay fees for the advice. Somehow, generally speaking, that's quite a logical, joined-up thinking, they accept it. So that's how I introduce the life planning, but I don't necessarily go into great detail as to what we would understand life planning is about. The second thing that I struggled with is how do you charge for it? Because there's no doubt if you're doing life planning properly, you're developing the relationship, and you're going to have more meetings than you would normally have had with clients. Especially, you'd have more meetings. And at outset, I tried to charge for that. They didn't really understand where I was coming from at outset. They did afterwards, but not when I was trying to explain it. So I've just parked that, and I still have an initial charge for just getting to the strategy phase, and a charge for implementation. And I've taken the view that we will just carry the extra time that the life planning takes, because that develops better working relationships. Hopefully, if I've been selective with the clients that we want to take on board into the practice, then I know they'll fit well, and I'm happy to have those extra meetings at outset to try and get that good relationship. And certainly my experience in the past is that's been valuable, and I'm happy to work on that basis. The third point that I would mention is one example of a client success situation, whereas a husband and wife came in, they were just turned 60, both of them, both working 4 days a week in different jobs. Lovely couple. I had sent to them the 3 George Kinder questions, and one of them wrote an essay on every question, went over the back, loads of it, really just outlining what he would like in the rest of his life. It was a dream to read. She was a little bit more brief, but you got a real. They spent time thinking about this, and they had one adopted son. They'd adopted very late, and the son is currently taking GCSEs. So there was and they were paying top educational fees in London. So they had big outgoings, and for another couple of years, and then university. And then when I talked to him about his work, he worked as an IT consultant from home, in front of a computer every day. And early on in the conversation, there was lots about wanting to have friends and living in the country and having house parties. Everything was around about personal relationships. And you could see this man was desperate with his job. And as he was describing it, there was just a heaviness in the conversation, and the whole room became heavy as he was describing what was really purgatory for him. And his wife had a lovely job, and she loved that, and was really happy to work on well past their timescale was really the rest of the education. As soon as they got their son educated, they thought they could then retire. But she was up for working much longer, but he would retire the following day if he could. And just allowing the space, that meeting was an hour and 40 minutes, just talking about them and what they wanted. And the light in his eyes when I said, if the finances permitted you to retire tomorrow, and we could secure the education, and we could make sure that you're going to have a satisfactory life in retirement, would you part company with your employer now? And the eyes shone. It was just a magic moment. And that would never have happened in the traditional fact-finding environment. It could only happen. I felt quite embarrassed in that meeting because we just talked for an hour and 45 minutes, as I say, just about them and their aspirations. And there were times where the conversation went quiet because they were thinking, and I was about to fill the silence, and I held back. George Kinder, don't fill the silence. And I just let them think, and then you get a little bit more, and it goes a little bit deeper, and you really got to be able to help them talk about their lives and what they wanted. Now, I don't know whether he will retire. The maths we've yet to have the meeting which goes through the lifetime cash flow, but the maths works, and I'm just going to be delighted to go back and say you can retire tomorrow and achieve what you want if you want to. And I just use that as an example of life planning working, really. Thanks, Phil.